Hello, hello, eternal souls. That's something new I just tried right then and there because the concept of this whole thing is to sort of process out loud. But if you want to hear about an update of the direction that this channel is taking, stick around till the end. But to the topic at hand, can you be good outside of religion? But that's not really what I'm thinking about today. It's deeper than that. Because, I mean, obviously the knee-jerk reaction to that is, of course, you can be good outside of religion. But the question really is, what is good? Because one of the things that religion tells you, and I'm really being general about all of the religions out there and everything, but I think, as far as I know about them, the majority, at least the top religions that are followed in the world, they tell you what is good and what is wrong. I think that is one of the purposes that religions sort of serve in a role, that they tell you what is good and what is bad. But my belief now, because if you didn't know, if you didn't watch my previous video or you haven't followed me at all, I used to be a Christian. I grew up in a Christian household, and I was a very devout Christian until I was 23 years old, which is now over 10 years ago. So that was my right and wrong. Yeah, I was a Christian. What the Bible said is right and wrong, and even then there's contradictions about it. Anyways, let's not get into all that stuff. What I'm discussing today is good an objective reality? Is being good something that is set in stone, something that you can look at and just simply say, yeah, this is good, this is bad? And religions disagree on this, and all types of views and perspectives in the world disagree on what is good and what is bad. And that is because my view is that good and bad, morality, it's subjective. You can sort of agree with it at the beginning when you really think about it, of course. Like some religions say that it's bad, for example, to have a certain kind of meat, like having pork, for example, in some religions is a very bad thing, and if you do that, that is morally wrong, and it's either a sin or it's just this very corrupt thing to do. And even if we step outside of religion and we think about, for example, a vegan mindset, not all vegans stop eating meat because they care about the animal, but a lot of them do, and so they do it because in their mind, morally, it is wrong to harm that animal. And so the idea that I'm trying to process here is that I read this book. I don't know if the term that I'm about to say, the author came up with it in the book. Probably not, but that is where I learned it. I read a book called Sapiens, and it talks about imagined orders. And an imagined order is basically an order, a system, a way of being, something that we as humans agree upon, and it is only real because we agree that it is real. And pretty much everything is an imagined order, really. If you think about, for example, money, cash, that is all imagined. Money is only real because we agree that it is. Somebody said, okay, this is worth this much, and it is only worth that much because a bunch of us agree that it is worth that much. If we don't agree on that, then something that is worth a lot in one moment can just be worth nothing. And that, if we get to economics and stuff like that, that is how bubbles pop, that is how recessions and all that stuff. Money it's a whole video and discussion on its own. And my point is that pretty much everything is an imagined order. I think a lot of people can really agree and see how money and all of the systems are imagined orders, where we agree on things because it benefits us. But really, there are so many other things that we don't really think about that are imagined orders, but they are, including things like, for example, I don't want to go to the highest one right away, but it is sticking out in my mind. But everything is an imagined order. For example, just schools are imagined orders. Like, it is what separates us from the animal world. All the things that we agree that are good or beneficial or constructive for a society to be formed, And usually things like school or like politics and the traffic system, the way that everything works really. But what I'm getting to is that even things that we don't really think about that are part of the imagined order really are. Something like human rights is also an imagined order, because if you think about the animal system, they don't really think about, like, if an animal goes and eats another animal, basically kills that other animal, is that wrong? I think we can all agree that it's just part of the animal system. But then what makes it different when we do it? It's different because we agree it's different. It's different because we have agreed that when a human being takes the life of another human being, that is a very, very bad thing. That is a no-no. And I want to, like, right off the bat say that I'm not this video is not about advocating, oh yeah, we just made this up. Killing people is not a bad thing. This is not a video about normalizing or advocating for murdering people, because I think that's a bad thing. But that's the whole thing. The whole thing I'm trying to process here out loud is the fact that we choose our imagined orders. And choose is probably not the right word, because we don't really get to choose necessarily. For example, I was born in a Christian household and I was indoctrinated into that lifestyle, and sure, I got out of it, but even getting out of it, it's because I got influenced by other outside things, because of the things I saw, because of the entertainment I watched, because of the books and articles and stuff that I read. So it is all dependent on the things that we are influenced by. I would like to think that I am maybe a bit more pragmatic and logical and objective than the average human being, but that in and of itself is possibly because I have been influenced by thinkers and ideas that believe that they are sort of above average in those things. So I don't labor in the delusions that I am completely outside and extracted of influence and indoctrination. I'm still indoctrinated in some things and ways, but this is me trying to process, and I don't think it's possible really to fully step outside of that, because all of our lives, all of our thoughts, or all of our ideas, the things we want, the things we enjoy, the people we love, the people we hate, it is all really dictated on the information that has been inputted in our minds. And yes, there is a bit of nature there, where there is a difference in the way that our mind processes things. If two people experience the exact same things, they are likely going to have at least some differences because of the differences in how they process the information. But at the end of the day, it is very likely that those two people that experience the exact same thing, even if they're not going to be exactly the same, they are probably going to have very similar outlooks and views and opinions about their environment and life. I haven't done an experiment to prove that, but anyways, I think I am getting really outside of the subject, and you tell me if this is interesting to you, because this is sort of the idea. I said I would talk more about it at the end, but I want to sort of process ideas out loud and share them. And it's going to be maybe contradictory. I'm going to contradict myself maybe. I'm going to say things that maybe I don't fully believe, that are not fully foreign, because I'm thinking out loud here and I am considering things, because this channel is all about perpetual growth. And one thing that I feel that has helped me grow the most in life is just literally just airing out my thoughts and just talking to myself and really scrutinizing and analyzing and critiquing and debating myself in things that I'm thinking about. Because a lot of times we just absorb information and then we sort of just let it lie there and just simmer and then grow on its own without really scrutinizing it, without analyzing, without poking at it. And then really we are just a result of thoughts that are thrown our way, and we have very little say about that. So I feel that for me, I've benefited a lot in actually speaking these thoughts out loud. So I thought, hey, maybe it's a good idea to share that process. And maybe it's not the best idea because I'm literally just being very raw, unfiltered, and I will probably make a fool of myself a little bit, and I'll probably say things that I may change afterwards. Like that's the other thing about human beings and societies nowadays is that we have such little grace for people changing their minds. And I know that at times people do have a very crazy outlook and they do a lot of things that harm a lot of people in certain ways that it is hard to forgive and have grace for change, especially when you're not even convinced that they truly change and they're just trying to save face. But I digress. My point is that I don't have a point. I'm just thinking that morality is subjective. Like, if we go back to the animal kingdom, the stuff that we see animals do, if you see a dog that is supposedly the best friend of humans, and a lot of people consider dogs to be better than humans, but if you look at a dog, I mean, they can have outbursts of anger, they can be violent, they can just, what else is synonymous with a dog other than being a man's best friend? The other thing is that when you call someone a dog is because they'll hump anything they see. And if a human does that, of course, that is morally wrong. When a dog does that, they're just following their instincts. And I know there is an argument to be made about consciousness and about being more aware that what you're doing is harming somebody else. But at the same time, we are basically at a biological level, we're all just different species sharing this planet. And I do believe personally that we do have a lot more responsibility because we have taken charge of so much of the world and we have to be responsible with the charge that we've taken. But that again, that is an imagined order that I have decided for myself. And if we talk about the moral compass of it all, how long is this already? This was supposed to be like a 10-minute long video, so let me wrap this up. My moral compass is simply, I do it really on automatic now, but when it's more complex, when it's more nuanced, I simply ask this question of the situation or the decision I have to make or the event or whatever it is. I ask two questions that are very connected to each other, and that is simply, does this thing harm me? And does this thing harm other people? That is it. That is my morality. That is my moral compass. Again, I do admit that that too is an imagined order. Like when you have a religion, they tell you exactly all the things that are wrong and what is right and all that stuff. It's an imagined order, but this is an imagined order as well. And I think to have a society that runs, a society that is well organized, and a society that is beneficial for us to share this world, not just with ourselves as humans, but with the rest of the species, animals and plants and whatnot. I think it is important to have an imagined order. I'm not saying that my moral compass, my imagined order is the absolute right one. My point is that there is no right one, but we all choose. We all choose what our imagined order that we follow is. And a lot of people choose religion. Some other people choose capitalism. Some other people choose hustle culture. Some other people choose, veganism or yoga or just human rights. But every place has a different idea of what a right is for humans. For example, if you talk to a Christian, it is very a right for a baby to be born, no matter at the point of gestation or whatever that may be. If you abort a baby, to a Christian, that is murder and that is wrong. And for somebody who follows human rights and believes that that is not murder, they believe that the human right is in the mother, that she should be able to choose for her body. And that is another video that I could make. I have a lot of opinions about that, but that is not this subject. My point is that even human rights is something that you imagine. all of this is imagined, and all of it is subjective. That I mean, maybe there is some higher law that dictates what is good and what is bad, but we don't really have access to that. So without access to that, religions claim that they have the access, but I'm very dubious about that. That's if you really think about what religion has done to humanity, I think a more fair assessment would be that religion is in the wrong side of what is right and wrong. But I digress again. This is not an anti-religion video. This is just me saying that we all choose. Whatever is right and wrong for you is subjective. And I think in order to get to at least, I don't know if a middle ground, but some sort of agreement, I think the first step really is to admit to yourself that morality is not a set thing. I mean, it is for you and it is for me. I'm not going to change in the fact that what I believe harms someone else and what I believe harms me, I believe that is a bad thing. I believe that if somebody else does something that harms other people, something that harms me, I believe that's a bad thing. And we can get to complexities about weighing the scales, because there are some things that we can do that maybe hurt more people on one side or the other. Or there are some things that maybe you can save some people, but by saving those people, you're hurting other people. There are complexities, of course, and asking that question, the answer is not always simple. And that's why there's complexity. That's why there is nuance. But I'm not always going to get it right either. But that is the question that I try to answer anytime that I ask what is right and what is wrong. That is my moral compass. And compass are not perfect. You know, they can go wobbly all over the place sometimes. But I think you just got to ask yourself, what is morality to me? Because I do believe that most people do not ask themselves that question. I believe that people simply have what they've been influenced to believe that morality is, and they just sort of go into it blindly without even really thinking about it. If what is moral to them doesn't really align with other people, then everybody else is wrong, and those people, they have whacked out moral compasses because the one I have is the right one. And I'm not going to say that mine is even the right one. This is just the one that makes sense to me. And like I said, I'm processing things out loud, and I'm trying to have grace for people to change. And if something comes along that maybe diverts me in a different route, where maybe my morality, my moral compass either expands or maybe it shrinks a bit, or maybe I changing the specifics of what harms people and what is maybe harmful but maybe necessary even though it harms people. And I can definitely change a lot when it comes to the complexities and nuances of everything, but that is my moral compass. What hurts me, what hurts other people. If it does, that is bad. If it doesn't, it's not necessarily good, but it's either neutral or good, in my opinion. And you may be asking to yourself, what is the point of this video then? The point is just to think about for yourself, not just accept what you've been influenced to believe, what you've maybe grown up believing. And this doesn't mean that if you think about it, you're going to change your mind. It just makes you more self-aware. And I know that self-awareness is not, sometimes people overrate self-awareness. They think that being self-aware is like the highest thing and everything, but there's more work to be done after self-awareness. But I think self-awareness is a very good step to take in order to grow. And that's where I'll leave you with that, to answer the question, can you be good without religion? Of course you can be good, and that really depends on what metric you are using, because what is good to you may not be good to somebody else. The good that I am right now is not the perfectly good that a religious person thinks about. And the good that a religious person thinks that is good for them is not necessarily good for me. So the question isn't can you be good outside of religion? The question is what is good? What is right and what is wrong to you? And that is it for this video, for this thought experiment, for this processing out loud. Is that what I'm going to call it? Processing out loud? Processing my thoughts? I'm just speaking as I think. And I need some water, but I told you I was going to tell you about the direction of this channel. And basically, this is it. This is not just the only thing that I'm gonna be doing. Of course, the thing about this channel is that I haven't even posted in a long time one of the type of projects that I was doing before. But I was doing very long projects that took a long time. One of them took 9 months to finish. And so in those 9 months, it's very hard to post stuff because I'm working on that project for 9 months. So I'm going to be doing this sort of video it is about growth, and it is about sharing my thoughts, and it is about a discussion here. I am really, if you listen up to this point and this made you think, I am definitely looking forward to hearing your comments about this, to hear what maybe you completely disagree with me, and to you there is a set definition of what is right and what is wrong, and maybe you think that I am a maniac because I think morality is subjective. Or maybe you think even more on the far of that spectrum and you're like, you are absolutely right, morality is subjective and therefore I am going to murder and abuse people. That would be the wrong message to take from this video. That's not at all my point of view, and that is not at all what I want to impart into anybody. But I do want people to think. I want people to become more self-aware, and I want people to grow, because this channel, my motto is perpetual growth, and I hope you enjoyed it. I will continue to do longer type projects. I'm working right now on something that started like even 2 years ago. I haven't like worked consistently on it every day, but it is something that is very ongoing, that has been happening, and so I'm working on that. There is another video about singing and stuff that I have to finish, and so I do have bigger, longer projects that are going to take a long time to complete and stuff like that. But I do want to, in the meantime, I don't know if I'm going to do like a weekly type thing with this processing out loud videos, but I don't know. It could get to a point where if I'll just post whenever something inspires me to think out loud, or it could get to the point where I'm just, if I do it really quickly, which is not now because this is already 24 minutes long or 23. The point is that I'm just gonna ramble on here, and if you want to listen to that, if you want to process with me, I welcome you to join me on that. And if you do have a specific topic that you would like me to process out loud, if you have more to discuss about this topic, maybe I'll expand on this with another video. But let me know what you think about that direction. About I'm going to be doing longer projects, and this type of video where I process is not necessarily about morality and religion and all that stuff. That's just really what was on my mind and what I wanted to start this with, because from my moral compass, everything will sort of be guided from there. So I wanted that to be the first video of this series that I'm doing. So beyond that, it can be really about anything. It can even be about a movie, a TV show, a book. It can be about politics or a event that happens, the World Cup, a wrestling event, a party that I went to, a comment that I read, a candy that didn't sit well in my stomach. It can really be about anything. And so I will leave you with that thought, because this is long enough, and I appreciate you for sticking with me as I ramble on. I am going to try to shoot for these types of video to be about 10 minutes long. This is already more than double that, so I will see you later, eternal souls. Should we stick with that? Should that be a thing? I'm still thinking about it. Bye.